American Horror Story's latest episode, Milkmaids. One of my favorite episodes for sure, but it definitely is going to have people talking about certain scenes in there. We'll talk about that in a bit. Before we get into it, go ahead and make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Hit that notification bell so you know when videos drop. We're on the road to 25,000 subscribers. We are less than 400 away for that 24,000 mark. At 25,000, we will do a giveaway, but make sure you tune in because we're talking all of the episodes of American Horror Stories as well as the new season of American Horror Story, which, by the way, just got some cast reveals, so we'll talk about that today as well. But let's get right into this episode, which definitely, it's definitely one for the times, right? If you know what I'm talking about. We'll get more into that in a bit. Basically, we follow a small town in the 1700s that is being affected by an outbreak of smallpox. Very familiar-ish sounding stuff here already. And so this town is getting decimated. We see a lot of deaths happening, all of that. We see a father and a son reeling from the loss of the mother and as well as the sisters just recently as well. So a ton of grief, a ton of sadness laced all over here. We have a new pastor in town who, as we know, when it comes with pastors, not the holiest. And he definitely is not the holiest, as we see that he is being pretty much a hypocrite with things. He meets a sex worker called Celeste and they start to have a thing going on, and that's when he realizes that there's something else going on here because she has all of these like smallpox on her, and she's pretty much like, no, don't worry about it. All of this is healing. People who have come to me have healed from these and they are pretty much not affected by smallpox or any of that, so don't worry about it. Eventually he does take some of the pus, so this is where things start to get a little bit into the territory of gross out horror, which not bad at all in my opinion, and definitely makes you think like, where the hell are we going here? Walter, of course, starts to throw up after this, and he is pissed off about it and says that he will hang her for ever telling anybody about any of this, and that she has to keep her mouth shut as she realizes he is the new pastor as well. During the funeral for Thomas, his wife, who is the father and the son as well we saw at the beginning, the woman Celeste comes into the church talking about that she has the cure for smallpox, all of that, and that she is sort of like Saint Lazarus as well, who was able to rise from the dead through miracle work and all of that, and pretty much saying, hey, I got the cure, listen to me, I'll tell you how to get to this. Of course, the pastor, being pissed off about what had happened earlier, condemns her and tells everybody that she is a witch, a liar, whore, whatever you want to call it, and pretty much has her thrown out of the church where she breaks her arm. See her end up in Delilah's barnyard area where she is actually a milkmaid who delivers milk to the town. And she kind of keeps her distance away. She really isn't a church person, as she says. She's more of a science person, isn't a believer in faith or any of that. So very much so a different situation for Celeste as what she's used to in the town. And this is when they start to sort of form a relationship together, this bond, this love, as Delilah tends to Celeste's wounds. Thomas, on the other hand, is going another side of things because he believes in a folklore tale, little gossip that he's heard from another town, that they actually were able to cure smallpox by eating the dead, in that way that they weren't able to come back to life, and they were the ones spreading the smallpox. So he pretty much tells the pastor this, and they go out and dig up Thomas's wife's body and consume her heart. He tries to feed it to his child, and his child's kind of like, this is weird, I ain't doing this, but you know, he eventually is able to get more of the town on board with this. I'm talking about the pastor, because the pastor really does believe that this is what's keeping them alive, and he wants to keep this power over the town as well. He wants to be seen as his leader for them, and so he eventually gets them all to go out into the cemetery and mass grave dig all of the bodies out and just eat them up. So cannibalism is just, it looked insane. And so we go back to Delilah and Celeste, who have now pretty much developed their feelings for each other and come out as well to each other. And then we see them that they have a eureka moment when they realize that they don't have necessarily the cure just because of Celeste, but it's because Celeste actually has cowpox, as they realize the cowpox is the same as the one Celeste has, and since Celeste was a milkmaid before, this is how she might have gotten it. And so they are just like, the milk in the cow is kind of contaminated with the cowpox, but that's sort of the immunity towards the smallpox, because you can be okay with the cowpox and you won't die, as opposed to the smallpox. So they try to go out to the town. Celeste is going to stay to make more batches. Delilah tries to tell everybody about it, and she encounters them all in the graveyard, just mass grave digging and is trying to get their attention. The pastor gets pissed, knocks her out with a rock, and goes to find Celeste because he's like, that's it, I told you to get out of here, and now you're going to do this. I'm going to kill you for sure. He eventually does find Celeste, and it causes an altercation. However, Delilah is able to come and save her from the pastor who's about to kill her. But Thomas, now who has come out clean to the pastor right before the pastor got killed, Celeste is actually the mother of his son, is now flipped again. Because at first he was trying to help Celeste, save her, and trying to stop the pastor from killing her. Of course, the pastor tried to kill him, and now the pastor is dead because he was trying to hurt Celeste, and Delilah came to help. But now Thomas is like, you are actually an evil woman, because he sees the relationship between Celeste and Delilah. So, of course, being influenced by the church and the pastor and all of that, he eventually goes to try and kill Celeste, but Delilah gets in the way. Delilah being dead now, and now Celeste kills Thomas as well. She leaves with Cammy the cow, which is the cow that has been producing the milk that is going to be the cure, to try and find her son. When she does, she explains everything to him, but then when she mentions the word milkmaid, it kind of like triggers him, because at first he was okay with her and trying to go with her as well, but sort of this milkmaid idea got ingrained into his head that she was basically this like non-person of God and was very much so evil. And this is all due to the teachings of the pastor as well, and he kills Celeste right there and eats her heart, and that's how our episode ends. So why did the boy exactly at the end kill Celeste? Well, I think it definitely all boils down to sort of this hate, this sort of distrust that's being passed down onto a younger generation, and it sort of fuels them, and by the time that they ultimately are able to make decisions, of course the kid was still a kid at the time, but they ultimately just all go back to what they were rooted in, and this kid was rooted in distrust of these women because of whatever profession they had, and they were pretty much guided by the pastor, the church, and all of that to fear and sort of have this other view of people that didn't belong because of this one man, the pastor or the church said so. So it's kind of like the kid fell down the pipeline, you know what I mean? So pretty much that's, I think, at the end of the day, what we see here happening. So I thought this episode was a great way of showing how things can sort of get misconstructed, and we see this a lot today. We know about this. Like, if it definitely has to click in your head what this is talking about when it's talking about a sickness being present, and then you have this one person who's not really equipped to tell you about what this sickness is and how to combat it, try to give you these ideas of what exactly can you do for this sickness. And on the other hand, you have this other person who is very well equipped and has the experience, as we saw with Delilah, that she knew exactly what it was, how to target it, and how to take care of it, but nobody listened to them because they were sort of these outcasted people now because of this other person who is the pastor, who just has a loud mouth and a bigger platform to spew all of these lies and all of this disinformation. And of course, people went with that other side, and we saw it. We saw them all mass grave digging, eating these bodies. Eventually, they're going to get smallpox for sure now and die because of it. And they didn't want to listen to the person that knew what it was, who was Delilah. So like I said, take it as you want. It is pretty much out there as how it is about a lot of the things we see, and not necessarily has to deal with just the way of a sickness or anything like that, but just disinformation in general, which is very rampant online nowadays. So make sure your sources are all vetted, and don't just listen to anybody with a Facebook following or YouTube follower or anything like that. Heck, don't listen to me. Make your own judgments, but listen to as many experts as you can, pretty much is what I'm saying. But I dug this episode, and I think it's definitely an improvement from the last one. Not that I hated the last one, but it's definitely felt weaker. I felt like the first episode and this one are definitely the strongest ones so far. I'm excited to see where we go from here. As I said earlier in the episode, I am definitely excited about the casting for American Horror Story's newest season. We'll talk about that as well, probably on the podcast today. I was going to drop it yesterday, but couldn't get it recorded, so doing it today. Stay tuned for that. But as always, let me know your thoughts and opinions on this episode. What did you think? What was your favorite part? I am definitely excited to see what comes next in the season so far. It's been great, as I said. It's sort of been like three for four for sure. Last episode was a little weaker, as I said, but I'm definitely gonna excuse it because I thought the first episode was really good. Anyways, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Make sure you hit that notification bell as well. And as always, I'll see all of you next time. We're on the road to 25,000 subscribers. Stay safe, stay positive.